Hello friends, good evening, greetings to all of you. So here I, Kunal Nagpal, would like to extend hearty welcome to you all to this great economic session. Dear friends, today we are basically going to discuss the key news highlights related to the Indian economy where and how it is related to the upsurge of the COVID cases in the Chinese economy. That is, how is the health sector and economic sector being affected because of the rising COVID cases? Let's have a look over this particular aspect. China is likely seeing 1 million COVID cases and 5,000 deaths a day. China is likely experiencing 1 million COVID infections and 5,000 virus deaths every day as it grapples with what is expected to be the biggest outbreak the world has ever seen, according to a news analysis. The situation could get even worse for the country of 1.4 billion people. This current wave may see the daily case rate rise to 3.7 million in January, according to the Airfinity Limited, a London-based research firm that focuses on the predictive health analytics and has been tracking the pandemic since it first emerged. There will likely then be another surge of infections that will push the daily peak to 4.2 million in March, the group estimated. Its modeling of the scale and toll of the China's outbreak, which uses the provincial data, shows the impact of the country's abrupt pivot away from the COVID zero far exceeds the government's tally. Officially, China reported 2,966 new cases for 21st December 2022. And there have been fewer than 10 COVID deaths since the beginning of December, but that contrasts with a growing chorus of reports that hospitals are being overwhelmed with patients and crematoriums are being pushed well beyond their capacity. Also, the ICUs are getting filled up with the number of COVID cases. Changes to how the government reports the figures, that is the virus figures, is also a major factor. China has largely shut down its vast networks of mass testing booths and scrapping efforts to continue and include every single infection in the daily tally, leaving the residents to rely on the rapid tests with no obligation to report the results. The country's health regulator also quietly adopted a narrower definition for what is considered a COVID death and much more selective than what many Western nations use, that is, making it difficult to gauge the real toll from the current deluge of infections. These changes mean the official data is unlikely to be a true reflection of the outbreak being experienced across the country, said Louis Blair, Airfinity's head of vaccines and the basic epidemiology, in a statement. This change could downplay the extent of deaths seen in China. Accurately capturing the COVID situation remains difficult across the world as the pivot to living with the virus means fewer countries test frequently. The emergence of the highly transmissible Omicron variant, that is BF.7, sparked a jump in infections, including the US, which posted its highest daily case count to date at nearly 1.4 million infections in January 2022. That coincided with a global number exceeding 4 million, according to the Our World in data. Now, my dear friends, let's discuss the basic symptoms which the Omicron virus is leading and basically entailing the condition brought on by the novel subvariants. After a year of relief from COVID, Omicron seems to be knocking on the doors again. Its subvariants having the similar symptoms like congestion, sore throat, and changes in the taste and smell. Now, after this COVID news, Let's discuss the basic news highlights. That is, Reliance acquires Metro AG's India business for 2,850 crore rupees. Through this acquisition, Reliance Retail will get an access to a network of Metro India stores located in the prime locations across the key cities, along with a large base of registered kiranas and other institutional customers and a strong supplier network. Modi government looks at fiscal consolidation in the Union Budget 2023, the last one before the 2024 elections. The fiscal consolidations is not a new move from the BJP government, with Modi's cabinet choosing to stick to a path of fiscal consolidation since coming to power in 2014. But the COVID-19 pandemic has severely affected the government's finances, pushing the fiscal deficit for 2020-21 to a record 9.3% of the gross domestic product, significantly higher than the budgeted 3.5%. That's nearly 3 times. Reliance acquires Metro AG's India business for 2,850 crore rupees, as we have just discussed. Then, manufacturing gains momentum as Make in India shifts into overdrive. India's manufacturing prowess is gradually gaining prominence in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic as the global companies expand their supply chains to reduce the dependence on China and other low-cost Asian manufacturing hubs. Commonly referred to as China Plus One, the strategy bodes well for the Indian companies in sectors such as chemicals, electronic parts, and automotive components. It will be prudent for the investors to track the companies in these sectors that will benefit over the long term. The opportunities for the Indian manufacturers are emerging due to the aging developed market capacities and improving returns on capital as China's green manufacturing mandate makes it more expensive. According to a recent Morgan Stanley report, India's share of manufacturing in total gross value added is expected to increase to 21% by the financial year 2032 from 15.6% in the financial year 2022. India is emerging as a viable alternative to the $1 trillion global specialty chemicals sector, helped by the process capabilities, lean cost structures, quality manufacturing assets, and a track record of protection of intellectual property rights in the process technologies. Companies such as Aarti Industries, Clean Science and Technology, Deepak Nitrate, then Vinity Organics, SRF, and Aether Industries may benefit from export and import substitution. Indian chemical companies are able to make the products where the landed price for the customers is actually lower than China due to the process-driven R&D with superior IP, said Aman Desai, Executive Director at Aether Industries. That is attracting a lot of global companies to increase their allocation to the Indian companies. We have increased the demand for several products from our customers who are increasing the allocation to India after they have delivery on 4-MEP. Aether Industries commands over 28% market share in 4-MEP, a key intermediate used in the production of metoprolol used to treat angina and hypertension. 4-MEP was earlier made largely by Japanese and Chinese companies. Similarly, Aarti Industries and Atul have gained prominence in the production of benzene derivatives and the monochloroacetate, respectively, aided by different process engineering. These opportunities, which were absent earlier due to the predatory pricing by the Chinese manufacturers, surfaced under the China Plus One framework. Another specialty chemicals company, Clean Science, is expanding its presence in hindered amine light stabilizers, that is HALS, through the catalytic reaction with a global market of around $1 billion. So, in the agrochemical segment, Indian companies including Haranba and Bharat Rasayan have gained a share from the Chinese counterparts in the pyrethroids. So to take the advantage of the emerging scenario in the global manufacturing, the government has implemented a production-linked incentive scheme worth 41,000 crore rupees to attract the global contract manufacturers. In the global electronics system and design manufacturing segment, China has a share of 45.5% owing to cost effectiveness and technological leadership. However, in the post-pandemic era, the global electronics companies are looking for the alternative manufacturing locations. This is likely to increase India's share in the global ESDM from the current 1.8%. India has among the lowest labor costs and overheads, giving it a considerable advantage over China and most Southeast Asian countries. An analysis carried out by Invest India and the Electronic Industries Association of India shows the wages in India are 46% cheaper than in China. That's a great discovery. This augurs well for the companies such as Keynes Technologies, Srima SGS, Avalon, and Amber Enterprises. Revenue of Indian ESDM companies has grown 30 to 40% annually in the past 2 years. Keynes in the process of increasing the capacity by 4 times in the next 2 years with a capital expenditure of 250 crore rupees. Srima SGS has a capex plan worth 571 crore rupees spread over the next 3 years. We are expecting around 50% of the incremental revenue in the long term to be driven by the China Plus One strategy, said Mr. Ramesh Kannan, Managing Director of Keynes. The company supplies glucometers and printed circuit boards used in cars. The global automakers are also getting into the vendor diversification. After losing nearly 8 million units of production, equivalent to 2 years of India's annual sales due to COVID-related supply disruptions, global automakers are increasing the allocation to Indian suppliers to minimize the volume risks. Mr. Vishal Rangwala, CEO of Harsha Engineering, a bearing cage maker, said a major customer has signaled its intent to shift China production to India. We have seen nearly 100 to 150 crore rupees incremental revenue due to increased allocation to India, Mr. Rangwala said. So we find this really very insightful after discovering that a lot of developments are going on as far as the manufacturing sector under the Make in India theme is being concerned, and the gradual shift is taking place from China to India with the help of China Plus One strategy. And also we have discovered that the labor cost in India is much lower than that of China. Next, Nomura, bullish on India, says it is the most attractive proposition and a long-term compelling growth story. Citing democracy and demography as India's biggest strengths, Jim McCafferty, head of Asia ex-Japan research at Nomura, said that India is a compelling long-term growth story and an attractive proposition for investors. In an exclusive interview with Economic Times' Anand JC, McCafferty also said that from a market point of view, the valuations are almost priced to perfection, and this is an issue. Now we are going to discuss a very positive aspect and the newest development in the Indian economy, that is the EV sales, the electric vehicle sales in India to surge in the financial year 2024. And mainly the two-wheeler segment is gaining a lot of prominence as far as the EV technology is concerned for the Indian economy. The sales of the passenger vehicles are already growing at a fast clip in the Indian market, with the numbers projected to be about 50,000 in the ongoing fiscal 2023 ending March from just around 3,000 units 3 years earlier. So that's actually a great achievement, from 3,000 to 50,000 within 3 years. The pace of growth could have been faster had there been more options in the mainstream segment, according to the market trackers. So, the EV sales in India to surge in the financial year 2024. The sales of the electric passenger vehicles in India are expected to more than double to top the 1 lakh unit mark for the first time in the next financial year, with demand set to get a boost from the new models being planned for launch by the automakers from Tata Motors to MG Motor India and Mahindra. The sales of the passenger vehicles are already growing at a fast clip in the Indian market, with the numbers projected to about 50,000 in the ongoing fiscal 2023 ending March from just 3,000 units 3 years earlier, as we have just quoted. So the pace of growth could have been much faster had there been more options in the mainstream segment, according to the market trackers. While the luxury car makers sell around 15 electric vehicles a year, options priced under 20 lakh rupees are limited to 2 offerings from Tata Motors, the Tiger and Nexon. Hyundai's Kona and the MG's ZS EV are priced in the range of 22.58 to 26.6 lakh rupees. Tata Motors, which has an about 90% share in India's electric passenger vehicle market, has received more than 20,000 bookings for its upcoming Tiago EV, deliveries for which will start next month. As much as a quarter of the bookings, according to the company, is from first-time buyers, including from the states such as Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh. The Tata Motors will launch 2 more electric vehicles in the mass market in the financial year 2023. The rival Mahindra is scheduled to start the deliveries of the XUV 400 EV in January, while MG Motor India plans to introduce the Air EV priced 11 to 15 lakh rupees during the April to June quarter of 2023. Adoption of electric vehicles by the Indian car buyers has been higher than expected. Tata Motors Managing Director Shailesh Chandra told ET, "We had not thought that we would be able to sell 50,000 electric vehicles in such a short span of time. Today, it is more of a supply than a demand issue," he said. Demand will basically increase as the electric vehicles come into the market with varying range, the price points and body styles, and development of more charging infrastructure, he said. Electric vehicles at present account for nearly 8.5% of the passenger vehicle sales at Tata Motors, and this is said to increase to 10% with the Tiago EV, which is priced upwards of 8.49 lakh rupees. Mr. Chandra is quite confident that the company can have at least a quarter of its sales from the electric vehicles if it were to electrify the entire portfolio. Tata Motors plans to launch as many as 10 electric vehicles over the next 5 years. Mahindra too expects the electric passenger vehicles to account for a quarter of its portfolio in the next 5 years, said Mr. Rajesh Jejurikar, its executive director for the automotive and farm equipment sector. Now let's discuss the key highlights. That in the financial year 2020, the electric vehicle sales was 3,000, which increased to 6,000 in the financial year 2021, and that finally made a massive jump to 22,000 in the financial year 2022. 20,000 bookings for the Tata Motors Tiago EV, scheduled to start the deliveries of SXUV 400 EV in January. The MG Motor India to introduce the price between 11 to 15 lakh rupees between April to June 2023. So this is truly fantastic that how the EV technology is progressing in the Indian economy. And dear friends, here I would also like to quote, as far as the COVID news is concerned, the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and his entire team had a meeting on 22nd December 2022, wherein they discussed the key highlights and the urgent need of the action in order to combat this particular health crisis, for which they have concluded that that the usage of this hand sanitizers and masks is actually of utmost importance and would gain prominence in the coming times. And this is actually the need of the hour, as we are seeing that how the number of cases are increasing in China, how the death toll is increasing. That is nearly 5,000 deaths a day. It's not a small matter, actually speaking. And in order to combat the rise of the COVID cases in India, we really need to be very, very proactive now. So that's all for today, dear guys, and I hope that you would find this session really insightful and worth gaining through insights which would really enhance your knowledge set about the Indian economy, be it the automotive sector, be it the health sector, be it the IT sector, be it the finance sector. We have tried to cover all possible aspects in this particular session. So, dear friends, I would like to conclude here, and I really hope that you take good care of yourselves until we meet next. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.